Welcome to Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. It is Thursday, September the 30th. Ian Cameron back again with another Thursday edition of this show. Every week we break down CFL, NFL, maybe even a little college if time permits. Happy to have back on the show once again this week, Steel City Steve. He's been on the show a few times talking CFL, NFL here on the Football Frenzy. Steve, welcome in. We're going to talk CFL first, then NFL, but we were talking off air. CFL week already began. There was a rare Tuesday night game. And for the Edmonton Elks, it was about as ugly as you could get. I was absolutely stunned, Steve, how bad they were against an awful football team. And it's like, what did they do over the bye week? That's my question, because they actually had a bye going into that game against Ottawa on Tuesday. And it was just everything. It was just not sharp, not flat as a pancake early in the game, not ready to play, shredded defensively by a guy in Caleb Evans, who we remember from his college days at UL Monroe. Just taking apart that Edmonton defense early in the game, turnovers, penalties. I mean, Taylor Cornelius was awful for the vast majority of that game. It makes you wonder, and I think it makes me at least point the finger, because Edmonton's been a disappointment. This is a team I bet over their win total before the year began. I'm wondering now if they're going to get there. Now, Trevor Harris has missed the last couple of games. That's not a total excuse for how they've played. They have been dreadful, and it makes you think with how bad they were Tuesday night. What did the coaching staff do? What did they do? Twiddle their thumbs, pick their nose during the bye week? What did they do to get this team ready to go? Because they looked as unprepared and as unfocused and as bad as you could get with extra time to prepare, playing an Ottawa team that had absolutely nothing going for them going into that game. So I got to point the finger at Elizondo. And now for the first time, I'm questioning whether, we see this all the time in football. Some guys are good coordinators. They're just not good head coaches. And he's been a good OC in this league in the past, Jamie Elizondo. But as a head coach, now I'm starting to have doubts. When you have your team that ill-prepared against a very bad football team with an extra week to prepare and a bye week, that's a red flag beyond belief, what I saw from Edmonton on Tuesday night. Steve, what did you think seeing that game unfold?
And there was no reason for that. They lost to Ottawa once this year already. They probably saw what we saw last week against Hamilton and thought, you know what? We're going to go out there. We're going to get the W, and that's going to be it. But it reminded me a lot of the spot against Montreal in week 2 when they lost to this Ottawa team, dominated them in the stats. They allowed the pick 6 late in the game, which lost them the game. And they came out next week against Montreal and they just didn't have it at all. They got crushed in the return game, the special teams game, like they did 2 nights ago as well. It's just. I agree. I thought, and that defense was number 1 against the run 2 years ago, and I just they're having a real hard time putting it all together for 60 minutes, and they're going to be on the outside looking in. It looks like if it keeps going the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. They're in a very tough West Division. Obviously, Winnipeg's having a great year. Saskatchewan, had a little tough 2-game stretch against that aforementioned Winnipeg team who are leading the division, but they've bounced back against Toronto and BC since then. By the way, that Saskatchewan-BC game. You talk about nuts, and our good friend Gabe Morency was at that game last Friday night, Saskatchewan and BC. Crazy football game there, very entertaining, and Saskatchewan got it done. So they're in a tough division, and Calgary's not given up yet. And there's some quotes coming out of. We'll get to Calgary's game against Saskatchewan, the final game of this upcoming Week 9 CFL card. But there's some quotes coming from Calgary. It's like playoffs start now for them. They've got to look at these games coming out of their bye week as almost must win and get on a little bit of a roll. So. The margin for error is lessening for this Edmonton team that has definitely been a disappointment so far. Let's get to the games now. We got Week 9 CFL. We've got 3 more games left this week. We'll start on Friday night. Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the BC Lions. We've got Winnipeg 1.5 point road favorites currently. The total is 52.5. And I keep thinking to myself, Steve, we've seen these totals all season, 40s for the most part. There have not been too many 50s. And I know we're starting to see a few of the overs come in. We saw Montreal, Toronto, which was my favorite bet last week, go over the total. The Owls and the Argos, and even Saskatchewan and BC got there late with the overs. So the overs are starting to, the unders are leveling off, at this point in time, after the incredible run to the under to begin the year. Right. Nevertheless, I mean, this is a very, very steep number to me, considering who's involved in this football game. You got an elite Winnipeg defense. And a Winnipeg defense that can get after the quarterback. The defensive line's their strength. They had a lot of new faces coming into this year in the secondary, but I think as the season goes on, you're seeing that group get better. And you got to credit the coaching of Winnipeg, coaching up these young defensive backs they've had this year, because they lost a couple of really good ones, from the Grey Cup team 2 years ago. So Winnipeg, obviously, defensively, they're great. Zach Collaros, there's a lot of people that think he's in the running for MOP this year with how he's played for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And I never doubted his ability, Steve. Never. We know when he's healthy and he's on the field, he can still be a terrific quarterback in this league, and he's proving that right now. But obviously the question I had was, can he get through a full season at this point? So far, so good for Collaros. You look at it and you say, how is all this money coming in on BC? Because this line opened with actually Winnipeg 3.5 point road favorites. It's down to 1.5. But you take one look at the injury report for Winnipeg, and that's how you figure out why maybe some people are interested in BC. It really is a laundry list of injuries going into this game for the Bombers. Andrew Harris is limited in practice this week. Pat Neufeld hasn't practiced, key O-lineman for them. Willie Jefferson, Jackson Jeffcoat, the two, the two glue guys on that defensive line. They're the two most important players maybe on that defense altogether. They've both been limited in practice this week, and they've been banged up for a couple of weeks now. So there's a lot of injury concerns with this Winnipeg team. It's one of those games where you look at this number and it looks pretty short on the best team in the CFL right now, and a BC team that I questioned going into last week, Steve, and a lot of people like BC, as the home dog in that game, the small home dog against Saskatchewan. But I questioned their schedule a little bit. When you beat Montreal and you beat a horrific Ottawa team twice. Those were your big wins and your hot streak going into that Saskatchewan game last week was based off Montreal and 2 wins against Ottawa. And look, Montreal's been a disappointment now the last few weeks. So I didn't really see that, wow, we're ready to beat Saskatchewan now. And I know Saskatchewan had just played a couple games on the road this year. They haven't exactly been tested away from Mosaic Stadium. They had that home-heavy schedule early in the year. But sure enough, Saskatchewan found a way to win. It was a tight game. Cody Fajardo, I'll tell you what, put the drive together that he did to score that touchdown drive. Just incredibly done by him. He's a good quarterback, and he's changed my opinion of him because I thought he was like mid-pack of the CFL in terms of starting quarterbacks. I shamefully placed him lower than Matt Nichols coming into the year, thinking that if Matt Nichols could stay healthy, he could still be pretty good, but that hasn't been the case, obviously, for him with Ottawa. But no, I mean, that's a BC team that, to me, when you're asking them to beat, the upper echelon teams, I think there's still the jury out for me when it comes to that for the Lions. The defense, I think, has been pretty solid, although they obviously had a tough finish to the game against Saskatchewan. Michael Riley, the quarterback, he's had a makeshift offensive line week to week. There's been some injuries there, but I've been impressed. Michael Riley's getting better, I find, and I find the offense for BC is getting better. So I think maybe that's why we're seeing the total in the 50s as well here. But I don't know, with this number being where it is, I'd have to lean under the total. It's one of the highest totals we've seen, in the CFL in quite some time. And if this Winnipeg injury report, Steve, can clear up even just a little bit, where I don't mind them not having Harris. We've seen Brady Oliveira come in and run the football and catch the ball out of the backfield decently in the past. I want to see if that defense is healthy. I want to see Jackson Jeffcoat and Willie Jefferson in there, because I think if they're in there, that's going to turn me toward, taking Winnipeg at this near pick 'em price. You're talking about if they play, this line suddenly looks pretty cheap on what looks like right now the best team in the CFL against a BC team that really hasn't been able to step up in class so far and show that they can perform and get the job done. So right now we're leaning Winnipeg and under. Let's see what this Bomber injury report looks like maybe tomorrow, the day of the game. We get some clarity when it comes to that. What do you think here, Steve? Winnipeg, BC?
Yeah, that total, I don't think we've seen a total that high since week one. We had Hamilton, Winnipeg, that opening game of the year, it was 52. We may have had one other game, 50, 51, but other than that, it's been mid-40s for the most of the year. Look, BC went out and tried to rectify that offensive line, and it's for this game right here. It's for this game against this front. And Jeffcoat and Jefferson, I mean, they've been on the injury report most of the year. They're coming off a bye week. Harris, for that matter, as well. But I know BC hasn't beaten any upper echelon teams yet, but been pretty impressed with BC this year, man. I mean, that offense is extremely dangerous, and you have Lucky Whitehead, who wasn't re-signed with Winnipeg, who has just a plethora of wide receivers on that squad. They keep going down, and another guy keeps stepping up. So my concern is, and we talked about it before, that BC, I'd like to see a little more balance with that run game, and I'm not sure that they have. And we think that Winnipeg can be run on. We think so. I don't know if BC has the makeup of the squad that can take this team down, but I wouldn't sell BC short. I know it's a pick 'em price. I kind of do like it over. That's the only way I can play this. Well, I think we are going to get a high-scoring affair. I think both special teams are exceptional. I thought Calgary had a blueprint of how to beat Winnipeg, even though they didn't get it done, was keeping your quarterback upright, which is paramount in this game with Riley. And that secondary is a little susceptible. And Jackson, Jeffcoat, and Jefferson, it was after Labor Day weekend, but they didn't get going until that fourth quarter in that game. And Calgary, I thought, had the better of that play. Since then, Winnipeg, they dominate Saskatchewan, and their only loss is off a home and home against Toronto. So for that reason, I can't go on BC because, listen, Winnipeg just, they've been tremendous. But hopefully it comes down a little bit, but I'm looking over. I think Riley's been really good. These are probably the two best quarterbacks this year, without question. Rob Riley's been tremendous. And yeah, I'd like to see this game go over. Maybe we get 50 and a half or something, but no bargain, that's for sure.
Yeah, Michael Riley, I mean, look, that was kind of a blow to his ego a little bit 2 years ago. I mean, that was just a horrendous year for him. On the field, he didn't play well. He was banged up. The team was terrible 2 years ago. Devon Claybrook's experiment as head coach didn't work. Rick Campbell, give him credit. He's done a good job. Let's not forget, Rick Campbell won a Grey Cup in Ottawa just a couple of years into their franchise's existence. And now you look at where Ottawa is right now, and it's just in tatters right now. And, I think he got out of there at the right time. And, Rick Campbell's done a nice job here first season with the BC Lions. No, they've got weapons. There's no question. And that's going to be the challenge here for this. The key fundamental on-the-field matchup in this game is that Winnipeg pass rush against the BC offensive line.
Correct.
It really is. It's critical in this game. If BC blocks those guys, those monsters, as I like, and they are, especially if they play Jackson, Jeffcoat, and Willie Jefferson. If they block them, they're going to put themselves in position to make plays in the passing game, to burn them, to Lucky Whitehead, to a really decent Katoy has come on out of the receiving corps for BC as well, although he's questionable to play in this game. But there's no doubt, if they block that Winnipeg defensive front, there'll be plays to be made down the field for Riley because, the secondary, it's coming along for Winnipeg. It's not a polished, finished product yet, and we'll have to see how they fare. And look, they got the benefit before the bye week of facing a guy making his first ever start in the CFL and Taylor Cornelius for Edmonton out of Oklahoma State. So it was a little bit of an easier matchup for them there. But it's a good game. I'm looking forward to seeing it on Friday night, no question.
It's a great game, and it's probably correlated. If you like Winnipeg, you're thinking they're going to get after Riley, the game probably does fall under. If you like BC, I would imagine they're making that front four. They're going to neutralize them, and it's going to be a bit of a shootout. So you could do some same game parlay there, but for right now, for me, I like it over.
Yeah, definitely, and maybe highest total in a while. In the CFL, like you said, I think it was going back to that Week 1 Hamilton-Winnipeg game. It might be high for a reason. We'll find out Friday night. Saturday, a doubleheader, and we'll start with a game that I will be in attendance for, as you can see in the background.
Right.
Hamilton Proud, my little Ticat mascot behind me as well. Montreal Alouettes, Hamilton Ticats, Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. We got the Ticats 2.5-point home favorites in this game. The total is 48.5. I'm ashamed to admit that, but there's just it's such a good college football Saturday where I was thinking maybe I'll just sit this one out at home. Keep an eye. I'll have the Ticats on one TV. I'll have Ole Miss Alabama on another TV. I'll have just because that's a really good Saturday college football menu coming up this weekend. But I'm like, nah, I can't do that. I haven't missed a home game in forever.
Right.
I'm going to be there for it. We'll watch the highlights of Ole Miss, Alabama. I'll keep an eye. Check some videos out later in the day when I get back home. So I'll be there for Montreal Hamilton, even though I'll be missing a lot of good live college football at the same time. I don't miss a Ticat live game unless it's like an emergency or something. So looking forward to this one. And I give the Hamilton coaching staff a ton of credit. I mean, tons of injuries this year, both sides of the ball. Receiving core decimated. They had O-line problems early in the year that they're starting to iron out. Hamilton's got themselves a defensive line. We're starting to see that. I've been so impressed. You talk about Winnipeg's defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Hamilton's moved up into number 2, number 3 defensive line in the CFL with the way they've played the last few weeks. I've been incredibly impressed. Jagarad Davis, Dylan Wynn. I mean, this group up front, they are absolute. Ted Laurent, who of course now is finally healthy again for the Ticats. They are stopping the run and they are getting after quarterbacks. They're doing both right now for this Ticats team. I give the coaching staff credit: Orlando Steinauer, OC Tommy Condell, DC Mark Washington. This team is just so well prepared every week. I mean, you talk about the issues they have. It's like they don't make excuses, Steve. They just say, you know what? We'll find a way to overcome all these problems. We'll find a way to overcome our number 1 caliber quarterbacks, both being out at the same time, Dane Evans and Jeremiah Masoli, and we'll make it work with David Watford. We won't complain. We'll just find a way, and they've tailored the offense to suit Watford. You're not seeing them take a bunch of deep shots down the field. They're running the football a lot of quick, jet sweeps, a little screen. The screen game has been a big part of Hamilton's offense lately. High percentage throws to give David Watford some confidence, make him feel comfortable. And I think that's just terrific coaching. When, obviously David Watford is not someone that you're going to expect to throw the ball, 60, 70-yard bombs down the field. You set the offense up in a position to succeed and you tweak it and you tailor it to who you've got at quarterback right now. And the Ticats have done a very good job of that. And, the special teams, as long as Jeff Reinbold is the special teams special teams coordinator for Hamilton, they're going to have a good special teams. And look, they've had kickers left and right. They've had to go back and forth. They've had Michael Domagali kicking for them. Now they've got Taylor Bertolet, who was at A&M in his college career, kicking for them. But somehow, some way now, starting to make some kicks. The special teams kick coverage has been good. Frankie Williams is always a threat returning. So, this Hamilton team is just, there's never excuses. A bad start to the year, injuries, top two quarterbacks out, and they've just found a way. And I give them credit for that, and I'm impressed by that. And it makes you proud being a fan of a team when you see, there's so many obstacles and hurdles that they've had to overcome, especially the last few weeks. And to see them go 4-1, straight up and against the spread their last 5 games. And the only loss was a game they probably could have won. Remember, a missed extra point against the Argos in the Labor Day rematch, and they lost that game 17-16. Watford actually drove down the field just after Evans got hurt in that game, tied the game, and they missed the extra point. So that's the only loss in the last 5 games. They beat Calgary at home. They beat Saskatchewan. Or not Saskatchewan, but they beat Calgary at home. They beat Toronto at home on Labor Day. And then, of course, they took care of business against that awful Ottawa team, 24-7. Last a week. And what's nice for the Ticats here is they come into this game, it's not a full bye week, it's like a mini bye week because you've got more than just your allotted 7 to 10 days between games. And it's allowed them to really get healthy, especially at receiver. There's a chance that Brandon Banks is back. There's a chance that Braylon Addison, who hasn't played yet all year for us at receiver, is back. There's a chance that Devere Posey, who we signed in the offseason, a guy that obviously has had a great college career, was with the Argos previously and the Alouettes for a bit as well. He might be making his debut at the receiving position. So all of a sudden, you bring those guys along with what we've already got. Dunbar stepped up at receiver for us with the injuries. Jalen Ackland's been outstanding at the receiver position for us. David Ungerer's made some plays. I mean, we've had other guys step up, but to be able to basically insulate that receiving core with arguably your 3 best receivers on paper on your depth chart coming into the year with Speedy B, Braylon Addison, and Devere Posey potentially all back. They're practicing so that this week as we speak. So there's a good chance they're all returning. So that's good news. We talk about Hamilton's home field. I know it. I see it firsthand. I'm there. I see it. I hear it. It's a legitimate difference maker. They feed off the crowd. They've won 12 straight regular season games at home. this Hamilton Ticats team. You're not going to see me, and I'm not being biased saying this, Steve. You're not seeing me bet against Hamilton laying less than a field goal at home right now. They just find ways. You could say third string quarterback. You could say this. You could say that. But they're well coached. Nobody's as prepared, I think, to play a football game than us because of that coaching staff. They just, even with all the injuries, all the issues, they just find a way to get us ready and put us in a great position to play well. And I think you're going to see that here. And I can't be convinced that Montreal is in a position to play well because I've hated what I've seen out of this team the last couple of weeks. Hated it. The defense hasn't been good. Bethel Thompson went up and down the field last week for the Toronto Argonauts against Montreal in that 30-27 loss. And it was only that close because they punched in a late touchdown. I have no clue, Steve, what's happened to the confidence, the decision-making of Vernon Adams the last couple of weeks, but it's been awful at times. Just bad throws, bad decisions, forcing the ball into windows that you just shouldn't, as a quarterback. It's been a struggle for him. And they've come at critical times, these turnovers. That game was there for the taking against BC a couple weeks ago, off the bye, and they lost at home, 27-18, and then 30-27 loss against Toronto. Again, the game is there for the taking, and just these critical mistakes, by Vernon Adams at bad times, costly interceptions. Had a chance to tie the game or go ahead. Costly interception with 3 minutes to go last week against the Argos. So there's issues there. The defense has kind of declined a little bit the last couple of weeks. They've given up, 27 plus points. In fact, 27 plus points in 5 straight games. This Montreal Alouettes defense. So, I think less than a field goal, I'd have to lean Hamilton here. I don't know if I will bet it, because you think desperation's got to set in for Montreal. Hamilton beat Montreal in Montreal earlier this year. So if you factor revenge into the handicap, that is a revenge spot here for Montreal. But I'm not convinced Montreal's as good as Hamilton right now. They've certainly got the better quarterback, you would think, on paper. You would definitely take Vernon Adams over David Watford. But I think I'd rather have Hamilton's coaching staff right now. I'd rather have Hamilton's defensive line right now. Montreal's defensive line's not getting any pressure or pass rush. Hamilton's is. At home, we know that this is a double-digit home win streak in the regular season going into this game now for Hamilton. So, I don't know. Based on where the number is, it's tough to go against Hamilton in this kind of price range, at least in my opinion. And I think the game could stay under this time around. Hamilton's really playing a ball-controlled, time of possession, run the football, short passing game, rely on the very good defense type of formula to win games. So this could be a lower-scoring football game here with these two Saturday. What do you think here, Steve? Owls and Ticats?
Yeah, Hamilton is 1-5 to the under. I mean, their defense has been outstanding since that gauntlet they had to play at Winnipeg and at Saskatchewan prior to their bye week. I just read that Mazzoli put in a full practice yesterday. So is there any chance because that changes things?
That does. Apparently they're being cautious though, because I also heard Jeremiah say we hope the next week or two that the rib issue just continues to get better for him. So it sounds like he's practicing, but with them winning as well the last 2 games,
right?
They found ways to win with Watford. Just me, this is not knowing anything because they haven't said anything specific yet on his status for Saturday, but just my gut feel is they'll give Watford one more week and as the starter. And Basoli one more week to heal up and have him ready for the next game.
Well, if that's the case, then here we go again with Montreal. When they played Hamilton the first time, I mean, the turkey was on the table for them to have a good outing, succeed, beat Hamilton, and you mentioned the mistakes. It's 13-10 in the fourth quarter. Adams throws a pick out on the flat. Guy returns it inside the 10, and Hamilton wins going away. It's been that way all year with Montreal. You look at the stats through the CFL this year, you're going to see number 1 in points, number 1 in rushing offense, number 1 in net offense, second down conversion rate. Montreal was number 1 in everything. 560 yards against Toronto. They can't put it all together. They can't win any games. 471 the week before. They can't get it in the end zone against BC. They settle for 6 field goals. I mean, against Hamilton the first time, and I think this is their problem. They're number 1 in rushing. They didn't run the ball against Hamilton, and that line was banged up that night. And now we're healthy on the D line. You only had 70 yards rushing on 18 carries. You had 2 extra days off for Hamilton. We'll see what happens at the quarterback spot. That's a tall number, 48.5, for a Hamilton side that maybe without their top quarterback, and for a Montreal, so you think that Hamilton's going to be able to have this time of possession on their side, and with Montreal's red zone deficiencies, 48.5. That's been one of the higher Hamilton totals, and like I said, they've only gone over once all year. Montreal, I mean, they still have time, but it's the same thing every weekend with this Montreal team. I mentioned the 560 yards of offense. They had 11 penalties, and the turnovers. And Hamilton, the last 2 weeks, has gotten scores from their defense. The win against Toronto, they had the punt return by Williams. They're playing complementary football, something Montreal has been unable to do since that week against Edmonton. First game of the year, and they have one win against Ottawa where they scored a third of their points almost when they had 51 points. So been it's hard for me not to see Hamilton. I don't want to jinx your squad, but it's hard for me not to see Hamilton really be in a good spot right now, really start to put it together. They've been through their gauntlet, get on a run, and take this East going away. I really think that, and I think it's a bad matchup for Montreal. Look, what Montreal does well with that passing game, Hamilton's pass defense is tremendous, and I just think it's a bad matchup for Montreal. If Watford plays, I don't know if I'm going to be laying 2.5, but I think that total is in play at 48.5 to go under.
Yeah, I think it definitely goes under, and like I say, less than a field goal. This is it's Hamilton or pass for me. I mean, the win streak in the regular season. Going back to the beginning of 2019, the year they went to the Grey Cup, they have not dropped a regular season home game at Tim Hortons Field. So, and again, they're just basically being priced in a near straight up pick'em situation here. With laying less than a field goal at home. So, yeah, Hamilton and under is where I would go. And you mentioned the secondary, and they haven't even had Mike Daly, Carriel Brooks have both been banged up the last couple of weeks in that secondary too. And it's still good. It's still found a way to just be terrific. Lockdown, shut down. And, we're seeing Vernon Adams forcing, throws into coverage. That could be trouble, against this secondary on Saturday. So, yeah, I think Ticats in a lower scoring game would be the way I would go in this one. Final game of Saturday, or of week 9. It's the second of the 2 games on the Saturday doubleheader. Saskatchewan and Calgary. Got Saskatchewan 2.5 point road favorites. 48 the total here in this game. I really like the way this sets up for Calgary here, and the money has started to come in on them a little bit. We're talking about this is a far cry from the Calgary of 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Not only with the way they're playing on the field, but the point spread you are receiving with Calgary. How many times have they been a home underdog, going all the way back to when John Hufnagel was the head coach many, many years ago? It has not happened very often. But look, the quotes I'm reading out, look, Calgary's had a tough stretch. There's no doubt. It's been a struggle for them. They haven't been able to put it all together. Bo Levi Mitchell's, of course, missed a few games and really hasn't looked sharp. He looked like, wow, he's turning a corner when they got the win against Edmonton in the Labor Day rematch. Remember, they lost on Labor Day in Calgary. They got them in the rematch 32-16, and it looked like they're turning a corner. But then they had to come to my hometown, take on my terrific defense, and they made Bo Levi Mitchell look hideous in that game. If you watch that Calgary-Hamilton game, and of course I was there for it, they made him look bad. They actually embarrassed him. Just awful throws, sacked left and right. Hanging on to the football too much, which Bo Levi Mitchell's been great at getting the ball out of his hands quickly. And I think he got shook by the Hamilton defense in that game because he's hanging on to the ball way longer than he normally does. He was woefully inaccurate for most of that game, to the point where he actually got benched, when that game got out of reach for the Calgary Stampeders. And they put the young kid who actually has had a couple of starts this year, Jake Mayer, in there at quarterback for them. So, obviously, he's not been vintage Bo Levi Mitchell, but he's been banged up. He's definitely had his struggles. Maybe I think he's lost some zip on his passes. I don't want to say it's the Matt Ryan, Drew Brees loss of arm strength, and he's never going to get it back again. But I think there is definitely something to that, Steve, where he's just not got that same sharp, crisp zip on his throwing, on his passes right now. Can he get it back is the question. What I like for him, though, is he's still one hell of a competitor, Steve. He's intense as all get out, Bo Mitchell. He cares about winning. This is really angering him that the team has gone in this direction and struggled to the degree that they have, and that he has struggled to the degree that he has at the quarterback position. You know, he's not used to being 2-5 through the first 7 games of a season. This is not what you expect from this Calgary team. But what I like for them coming into this game is they've had a bye week since that ugly game against Hamilton, where actually the final score was flattering, 23-17, considering how bad the the offense was in that game for Calgary. But they have a bye. Bo Mitchell saying we need to put a run together. We've really cleared our minds. We're refreshed. We know we've got better football ahead of us. Dickinson saying the same thing. We can't just win one and lose a couple, or win one and lose one. We got to go on a run here. So they're talking the talk. That this Calgary team's coming out full bore, refreshed, revitalized, reinvigorated, and a kind of a savior season stretch for them, if you will, here, starting with this game at home against Saskatchewan, coming out of their bye week. I think it's the right spot to take a shot with Calgary here. And I like Saskatchewan. Don't get me wrong. It's been a great season for them, 5-2. But again, a lot of those were feasting on, early in the year, BC breaking in a new head coach in the first game. And again, they had Nathan Rourke starting at quarterback. Remember that whole debacle with who was going to be in, Riley or Rourke? It ended up being Rourke, and then they put Riley in, and he was throwing up ducks, and his arm was totally out of whack in that game. So you put an asterisk beside that win. You know, Hamilton was banged up beyond belief, and Hamilton never wins in Saskatchewan. You know, and Saskatchewan got the best of them that night. They played a horrible Ottawa team. You know, you put an asterisk beside that. You know, they played Toronto 30-16. And in that game, you know, Arbuckle got hurt. So there's an asterisk beside that win. And those were all at home. Then they go on the road. They got beaten up by Winnipeg. And to be honest with you, if a few plays go BC's way, they may not win that game last week against the BC Lions. So it's not like Saskatchewan is just rolling past teams here left and right. And I think they're just going to get Calgary's best punch. Now, whether Calgary's best punch is good enough to win is certainly up for debate. It's a 2-5 football team that's been massively disappointing. But I think you're going to get Calgary's best punch in this spot. If I'm playing it, I'm on the small home dog stamps. What do you think here, Steve?
I'm really concerned with Mitchell. You brought him up. Even in the win against Edmonton, they had a pick six for a touchdown, threw another one against Hamilton. Yep. Hasn't been good all year. I've liked this Calgary team with Mayer. I really have. The game against Winnipeg was really, he played really well. Now he went, I think, 8 for 8 or 9 for 9 against Hamilton. The game was over at that point, and he did lead him on a score, which I'm sure is confidence building for him. But I really like where Saskatchewan's sitting. They're going to play these two. These two teams are going to play 3 straight times. They're going to go back to back. Saskatchewan's going to have a bye week. I think Calgary plays BC that week, and then Saskatchewan's going to play Calgary again. Look, they've scored 30 in every game except the Ottawa game, or I'm sorry, the Winnipeg games where they didn't even score in the second half. Ottawa was a bit of a flat spot. They came off Hamilton. They had Winnipeg on deck. I think they're sitting in a good spot, and I think that secondary is getting healthy. I don't trust Mitchell, and I'll tell you this: the dog in Calgary games have been immortal. I mean, it was like 10-1-1 going into that Hamilton game. Just take the points in the Calgary games, but Mitchell, like Adams, they're ticking time bombs to me right now, and they've been going off, and they've been destroying tickets single-handedly. So we're going to check that injury report. I know Marshall didn't practice, the corner for Saskatchewan, but I believe.
And remember, that's Nick Marshall, former Auburn quarterback.
That's right. Kick six fame. That's right. Yep. So Purifoy and Elam, I believe, are back in that secondary. And I see that Huff and Jordan did not practice for Calgary. So I'm going to look Riders, Ian. I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I kind of like the Riders to make fewer mistakes. I think that win settled some things down last week. Like I said, 3 straight. They get 2 of these 3 against Calgary. They're going to be sitting 7-3. And it looks like they'll probably get a home playoff game. So I lean Saskatchewan. Total of 48. You know, with Mitchell, I guess it could go either way. But for right now, I would just lean Riders, and we'll check the injury report on those Calgary wideouts.
Yeah, this is it. Like if he stinks up the joint again, and this Calgary team, especially on offense, plays terrible again and loses this game, then it's almost like the team is what they are. They're just not good this year. This is going to be the game we find that out, because you can't ask for this to be a better, situational spot for Calgary. Off a bye, fix things, get a week of rest. If he's got arm, his dead arm or fatigued arm or whatever the case may be with Mitchell, you got a week off now to rest that up. Dave Dickinson, who's obviously an offensive-minded head coach, to put a game plan in there to maybe throw some wrinkles into the playbook, some tricks, some gadgets against a very good Saskatchewan defense. I mean, it sets up just beautifully for Calgary. And yet, you're right, I'm lukewarm on Calgary. It's not. I think this is a spot I've got to play them in, because this has been a team that's been, obviously one of the best in the league for the better part of the last 10 to 15 years. But maybe they've fallen that far. It's hard to imagine that just in 2 years, from 2019 to this year, with obviously no season last year, that Calgary could have fallen this far, but maybe they have. Maybe they have, and we're going to find that out, obviously, Saturday, especially offensively with Bo Mitchell. They couldn't have asked for a better scheduling situation for them here, but can we get them to get the job done? A team that's lost 3 of 4, and I'm looking at Mitchell's numbers, Steve. They're ugly.
Right.
You're not kidding. 2 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 58% completions. Look at that ratio, 2-7 touchdown to interceptions.
I think half of those interceptions went back for touchdowns as well.
Oh, yeah, multiple pick sixes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely not someone that has played good football at the quarterback spot. Bo Mitchell this year, it's been his worst year by far here in the CFL. Now it's just a question of, can they get it back on track? And again, they've got everything on the table to help them get it back. The bye week, Saskatchewan on the road for a second straight week. I mean, there's a lot of things to like about how this sets up for Calgary, but I've seen great setups before for teams.
Yep.
And it's been miserable. Ottawa last week, that was a good setup against Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton was on 6 days of rest.
Right. 4 games in 16 days. 4
Exactly.
games in 16 days.
Yep, that's right. And Ottawa's rested and ready, fresh and ready off a bye at home. They didn't even have to travel. They're just sitting there waiting for Hamilton, and it couldn't have gone worse for the Red Blacks in this game. That could happen to Calgary here. Like, the spot alone is not always enough to help a team out if they're not good. And I guess Saturday, Steve, we'll find out if Calgary's good or not.
If they get in, they get down, and they pull Mitchell, and you have an in-game opportunity with Jake Mayer, you may want to pull the trigger on that, because I've liked the way he's played, and I think they've responded better while he's in the game.
It's hard to deny that. He was very good. He looked very poised in the pocket as well when he was in there. As you can see on the background,
yes.
We're now turning to NFL football now, as that was the CFL. We'll come back at the end of the show, do a best bet. It can be CFL, NFL, whatever Steve wants, whatever I want for best bet. But we'll do the NFL card first. We'll go a little bit quicker through these since there's more games. We've got Jacksonville and Cincinnati Thursday night football tonight. Cincy 7.5-point home favorites, 46 the total in this one tonight. With I get the sense there's just going to be some points in this game. I don't love either side. The reason for that is we're talking 46. We're talking about a Jacksonville team that went over the total with Houston, which isn't a great offense, that went over the total with Arizona, and it was in the 50s there. But now we're only getting a 46 to deal with. I get it, Cincinnati is off 2 unders, but look at the opponents. 2 teams that have broken offenses and issues offensively beyond belief right now.
Right.
Pittsburgh, the O-line is shot. It's terrible. Big Ben. He's checking the ball down and dumping the ball off to Najee Harris. Najee Harris was targeted 19 times last week. What's going on? Is there any downfield passing game right now with Pittsburgh?
Here, down the street? No, there isn't.
I mean, Najee Harris targeted 19 times, the running back. That's insane. But that's what happened with Pittsburgh last week. So Cincinnati played them last week. And look, the defense is getting better for Zach Taylor's team. I don't deny that one bit. But they faced some broken defenses the last couple of weeks. Pittsburgh's offense is reeling. So is Chicago as well. The O-line's terrible. What do they get? Just the ultimate embarrassing offensive performance against Cleveland last week from Chicago with 50 yards of offense? Not even. I mean, absolutely atrocious for the Bears offense. So, yeah, Cincinnati's done good defensively, and Jacksonville, I think the one thing they can do maybe is chuck the football around a little bit. Because the one thing, Cincinnati's been good against the run. might be able to make some plays. I still like that receiving core a little bit for Jacksonville. And Lawrence isn't shy to throw the football. He's been throwing
Right.
it a lot. And plus, with the over, you can always throw what he did last week against Arizona, pick six to Byron
That's
Murphy.
right.
That'll help you out too. And you might see that as well in this Cincinnati game. And on the flip side, I know they've committed to running the football a little bit more conservative with Mixon this year, the Cincinnati offense. But when you're talking about, and I know T. Higgins isn't going to play, but look, there's still more than enough down the field with Tyler Boyd, with Jamar Chase, and the chemistry's been real. The chemistry's been instant, and you're starting to see why Joe Burrow went into the Bengals brass in their front office and saying, you know what? I know offensive line's an issue. I know Penei Sewell is sitting out there, but get me Jamar Chase. Get me my guy from LSU on this team, and look at the dividends it's paid already for this offense. So, and don't underestimate the idea of this is the number one overall draft pick from 2 years ago, taking on the number one overall draft pick from this year. Maybe they want to showcase what they're all about. Mano a mano, I'm going to show you what I can do. And how better to do that than maybe throw the football around a little bit. So I think the game goes over the total. Initially, I was leaning Jacksonville because, how can you lay more than a touchdown with Cincinnati? They haven't been favored by this kind of number in forever. But then the more you look at it, they're 0-3 straight up and against the spread, Jacksonville. They've had some things go their way. They had a kick return touchdown at the end of the first half against Arizona, which was supposed to spark them, and they still couldn't win. They still couldn't cover. So this team is just a long way away from being competent right now. And the rookie coaches in the NFL that have to go on the road on a short week on Thursday Night Football have historically been an abomination in this spot. And that's what Urban Meyer has to try to overcome tonight. So I think the best way to go from a side perspective is put Cincy in some parlays, put Cincy in some teasers, tease them down to maybe 1.5 because I do think they'll win. But I'll take a chance on the over here at 46 as well. What do you think, Steve, Thursday Night Football?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the over. It's not like either of these teams are going to be ball control. They're not going to, if they get a lead, they're not going to try to. Their passing game is what makes their offense go. You have a lot of very good receivers in this game, and I mean, this game could be under the whole way and explode in the third or fourth quarter. I don't think either team will stop throwing. 46 seems very reasonable, and it hasn't moved all week. Weather shouldn't be an issue. So, yeah, I mean, 1 versus 1, the NFL knows what they're doing. Every primetime game but one has gone over the total this year so far. 46, you're getting a lot of value here, I think. I think this could be 40, 48, or 49, and I wouldn't put the Bengals defense not at all in the same category as an Arizona or a Denver that Jacksonville has played the last 2 weeks. So, yeah, I think we get some points in this game. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch.
That's exactly what I noted because I wrote this one up and sent it out to people on my subscription email list, and I said the same thing when I sent them the over tonight, is that Arizona's defense is much improved. Denver's is elite. There's no doubt about that. Denver's got an outstanding defense, and I don't know if Cincinnati's at the level of those two teams on the defensive side of the football. I know they've been good the last couple of weeks, but Pittsburgh's offense is shambles, same with Chicago. Well, let's not forget, Minnesota moved the ball a decent amount the first game for Cincinnati way back in week 1. So I do think we'll see this game just get up and over the total. I think like 28-21, you can definitely see that, and that's going to cash your ticket. That'll be 49, and that gets you over the total. Let's go to Sunday. We've got a pretty interesting Sunday slate. Washington football team, Atlanta Falcons. Washington 1-point road favorites, 48 the total. Candidate for the most disappointing position group or position unit for any team this year has got to be the Washington defense. I mean, everybody's singing the praises of Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, the defensive line. I think people forgot the secondary as part of the defense in the evaluation process, too. That secondary has just been carved up. Look, Daniel Jones actually carved up that Washington secondary on the Thursday night game last week or a couple weeks ago. And then Buffalo, obviously, if the Giants are moving the ball through the air against you and you're not getting the pass rush consistently against Daniel Jones, you're going to have a tough time against Josh Allen and the Bills offense on the road. And that's precisely what happened with the WFT secondary last week in that game. However, before we completely just get totally cold feet on Washington, I still think they're good enough to beat Atlanta. And I'm not buying last week the win over the Giants for Atlanta as wow. Matt Ryan and the Falcons going to put things together now and go on a run. You realize what happened there? The Giants had they were moving the ball. They were like Utah State last week against Boise. They're moving the ball 20-20, in between the 20s. They got into the red zone, shot themselves in the foot. The Giants' own red zone defense was terrible. They just couldn't get stops on the Atlanta offense in the red zone, and they couldn't score in the red zone. That was the difference. Red zone efficiency killed the Giants in that game, or inefficiency against Atlanta. And they also lost their 2 top wide receivers to injury in that game. Slayton and Shepard, both of them got hurt in that game, didn't return. So that really took away from what Daniel Jones and the Giants were able to do. I'm definitely not trusting Atlanta yet, just because they beat a lowly, sad sack Giants team and a head coach in Joe Judge that I don't know if he can see the forest from the trees at this point. Challenging plays that are automatically reviewed like he did early in the year against the Denver Broncos. I mean, it's just a disaster, I think, from a coaching standpoint. I think it's a buy low spot for Washington. I still think they're better, and I'll trust Rivera in the coaching matchup. So if I'm betting this game, it's Washington. Any thoughts here, Steve?
I think the last statement you made was the most profound. If I'm betting this game, and look, Washington, I got him as just horrible third down defense. They just can't get off the field, and Ryan's more than capable of putting some drives together. I have him like 23 of 34 they've allowed on third down, which is awful. Rivera hasn't been a very good favorite in Washington. I think he's 1-4 ATS. But Atlanta, at home has been awful, just awful. New coach, same story. How you score 6 points against the Philadelphia Eagles in week 1. And after the preseason you had, I can't see it's a game I'm going to get involved in. I think there's some better options on the board, but we'll see. Someone has to win the game, you would think, but someone's probably going to lose it. Is what's going to happen. One of these teams will lose the game, and the other will benefit.
Yep, that's and the late great, and I miss him. Morency misses him. Dave Malinsky, so just one of the legends and pioneers in sports betting for years. Would always say that these teams that are losing teams, he'd always say, I'd stay away from betting those games. Dave Malinsky would always say this. He'd say, I'd stay away from betting these games because it's more about which team does more to lose the game rather than which team does more to win the game. Right. And that's exactly what you might see here in this one. There's no doubt.
And you don't know who that's going to be.
Yep.
Like Ryan should be able to take advantage of this opportunity, but they've been so bad at home. Fans, no fans, favorite, underdog. It's just since that Super Bowl, man, this organization has just had a cloud over it, and I'm not looking to bet Atlanta any way, shape, or form right now.
That's absolutely true. I mean, by the way, does Kyle Pitts play on the Atlanta Falcons, by the way? I thought they drafted him as a top 5 draft pick. I wouldn't know it. The invisible man out there. Can't find him with a telescope on the football field, in a few weeks this year.
No, that's got to be concerning with the new coaching staff. You make him the highest tight end selected in NFL history, and
especially when you have other needs, Steve. They had other needs besides
Absolutely. With a quarterback like Ryan, you should be able to get him fed and often. But Atlanta has been, like I said, they've been under a cloud for several years now, and it just doesn't look like it's – and it looks like, the way the former coach is doing in Dallas, that maybe it's the players and it wasn't the staff. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's starting to look like Dan Quinn's a better guy for getting out of there.
Right.
No question about that. Next game, Detroit, Chicago. Chicago, 2.5 3-point home favorites in the Windy City. Soldier Field, 41.5. The total's just been steamed down, 45.5 to 41.5. 4-point move to the under. It's kind of hard to deny that. You don't expect Detroit to move the ball up and down the field against Chicago here on the road. By the way, such a Detroit Lions way to lose last week, right? I mean, just snatch a defeat from the jaws of victory. How do you give up that soft a cushion down the field for Jackson to throw the football against in that Baltimore comeback? And look, I know the Lions fan is going to be upset that should have been delay a game and should have been a 10-second runoff because it was a penalty on the offense inside 2 minutes and it should have been game over. I get it. Zeros were on the play clock and they shouldn't have even had the opportunity for Justin Tucker to hit that record-setting 66-yard doink field goal that ended up going through the crossbar, off the crossbar, and in. Just such a Detroit way. That's the first thing I saw. Only the Lions could find a way to lose like this. Oh my God, the pain, the horror. And a lot of people that had the Ravens in parlays and teasers, and I had them in a few, and survivor pools. Talk about a survival. Need a record-setting field goal to win that game. I'll say this about Detroit under Dan Campbell. The fight and the guts to compete, it's tenfold higher than it ever was with Matt Patricia. Clearly there was an issue, players to coach with Patricia. They like the guy here, Dan Campbell at least, but it's still not a good football team. I mean, defense is a problem. Jared Goff still at times can make mistakes. This is just a game I'm just rather stay off. This is my stay off game, Steve, Detroit, Chicago. I can't lay points with this offense. I just can't. I mean, they mustered 50 total freaking yards last week. How can you lay points with that team? Matt Nagy is running vanilla offense from 20 years ago. I mean, I don't see any creativity. I don't see him putting – you talk about coaching staff, you talked about Hamilton, putting players in the position to succeed. Is Matt Nagy doing that in Chicago? I sure as hell don't think so. So I'd rather just stay off this game. Anything for you, Steve?
Probably not. I think both teams, I think Chicago's offense could get better in this game, and I think Detroit's offense could continue with that second half they had against Baltimore last week. Look, I mean, Goff's a serviceable NFL quarterback. Swift looks like he's the real deal. They got some injuries, but I think that offensive line is going to start to come around. And you mentioned that this team, it appears, has bought in. I can't say that about Chicago anymore. I know Mack and Hicks went out last week for the Bears on defense. But this has been a one-score game either way, several of the last meetings. They sort of mirror one another, but could be a late kick or last team with the ball or the first team to score wins this game. But, it's not off the card completely yet because this total does keep dropping. And maybe 45 was entirely too high, but 42, look, the Bears offense, it does seem to work better at home. Now their road schedule compared to their home schedule is much more difficult. So I do think they can find some success at home. They did get to 20 in their first home game. I could see them getting to 20 against Detroit here. They've had some wild games, but if it keeps going down, I'm going to look at this game going over.
All right, so the total continues to depress a little bit or decline. Maybe look at the over here for Steve. Here's a great stat, because we remember Jared Goff didn't start his career in the NFL at quarterback with Sean McVay with the Rams. Jeff Fisher, was still the head coach there with the Rams when Jared Goff was just getting started. Jared Goff in games without Sean McVay is 0-10. How about that for a stat? How about that?
Wow.
0-10 straight up for Jared Goff and his teams as long as Sean McVay is not his head coach. That's the Jeff Fisher days early in his career and obviously his first few games here with Detroit. 0-10. Hasn't won a game without Sean McVay by his side. How about that? So that's why I understand the Detroit love and maybe taking +6, +5, +4. Now that we're 3, 2.5, and you're still piling on Detroit, not me, not anymore.
No, you would think that the Chicago defense is the best unit on the field, and they've been pretty sound at home. Just some wild games between these two the last couple of years. Remember Swift dropping the ball in the end zone last year that would have won the game for him. I think it was week 1. It'll be interesting in Chicago. No weather for that game either, but that is a heck of a stat that with a new coach, Jared Goff needs to be the guy to help this team move forward, and it'll be on him to get this team up after last week, I think. Because the coaching staff would not have been through that yet, but he has, and he should be the leader of that team right now. We'll see. I like you. I don't want to lay with Chicago, but Detroit's defense hasn't made many stops this year.
Yeah, I mean, he alluded to it in his post-game press conference that I've had some tough losses before, and this is one of the toughest. And we'll have to see if we can do to turn the page and bounce back. He's got to convince the coach and the rest of the team now to do the same. going into this game against Chicago, because that's rough to lose in that fashion. Brutal. Tennessee and the New York Jets. Tennessee 7-point road favorites, 44.5, 45 the total. At some point, there's going to be a number that's enticing enough for me to take the Jets. I don't know if this is it, though. However, I will say this for the Jets. You faced Carolina's defense. You faced Denver's defense. You faced New England's defense.
Right.
It's a pretty damn good defenses.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Tennessee in that same category defensively. So is this the week Zach Wilson and the Jets offense can at least get something put together going into this game? That remains to be seen. Actually was, believe it or not, while I bashed Tennessee's defense a little bit, they got ripped by Arizona. They didn't exactly play great even when they beat Seattle. They did play better against the Colts, but I think that's more of an indictment of the Colts offense right now. O-line issues. Of course, they've had Carson Wentz banged up with the 2 ankle sprains that he's dealing with. So, I don't want to make too much that, wow, that was a great Tennessee defense in that game. Not by any stretch of the imagination. But look, can he finally find – and we got to see if this receiving core gets healthier too for the Jets, because Crowder and Moore are both banged up, and that leaves them with Corey Davis, Keelan Cole, and Braxton Berrios, as their 3 receivers. And I don't know if you like that trio all that much if you're Zach Wilson in this Jets offense. But I don't know. I'm shaky to lay 7 here on the road with Tennessee. Divisional win, and now you're going on the road out of the division playing this Jets team. And look, they've got Brown and Jones questionable in their own receiving core, the Titans, going into this game. So Star Child in our chat says, I think that we'll go over. It's a buy low on the Jets and a buy low on the over because they've had no offense. All of their games have been under the total so far this year. It feels like there's going to be a time where you're going to get a good number and the markets just crash on the Jets. And obviously they're crashing on Jets unders too because of how bad the offense has been. That at some point, maybe if you take the Jets or you take the over in a Jets game, it's going to cash. Will it be this week? Remains the question. But the total's gone down from 48.5 to 44.5. If you like the over, Star Child, take it now because you're at least getting a good number. You're getting the best of it because this total opened 48.5. It's 44.5 now. But I'm probably staying off this game. I know the Jets have been unbackable, and I bet against the Jets. I was on Denver first half last week. I took New England against them. I took Carolina against them. I'm taking the Jets, Steve, in all 3 games so far. I just don't know if this is the week I'm coming back on the fade Jets train. What do you think of this one?
So you mentioned the receiver injuries possibly for the Titans. They also have Taylor Lewin and Roger Saffold are also on the injury report. This has not been Tennessee's role under Vrabel as an away favorite in this price range. I remember a game against Cincinnati last year with a rookie quarterback that just went up and down the field on them. It wasn't even they weren't even in the game. They had their issues last year laying points. I do have the Jets. I do have a mark by the Jets. We'll see with those injuries how that transpires the rest of the week with practice reports. Look, the Jets are throwing the ball. We know from Zach Wilson's interception total, they're throwing the ball around. But as you said, this Titans defense is nowhere in the class of the 3 teams they've played. That was a tough stretch at Denver, Patriots, and the Panthers. Who had Drex quarterback all summer to feed you information on what you guys, on what the personnel you have there, what you'd like to do, even with the new coaching staff. So I do have a mark by the Jets. We'll see how those injuries, because they mean a lot for the Tennessee side. We'll see. It's 7 now. I'm showing 44.5. 48.5 was probably too high for a Jets game. But, I mean, that's what you get. Tennessee brings that number. I mean, they've been an over team in years past, especially on the road. See if it keeps going down here. But the Jets above a touchdown, I think, is worth consideration.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think I'd be. And the way I started talking about this game, you can tell I'm thinking about the Jets this week. This would be the one week I finally consider maybe go the other way and back them. Instead of bet against them. But we'll see how the injury reports are. You're right, going into this game for both sides. Cleveland, Minnesota. Cleveland 2-point road favorites, 51 the total. I've already bet Cleveland here. It was -1. I took money line. It's up to -2. I'm just not ready to say, hey, everything's good again with Minnesota because they beat Seattle. Seattle's got no pass rush. I've said Seattle's defense stinks this year, in my opinion. I said that coming into the year. Seattle's defense worries me. They don't have a pass rush. They don't have anybody at linebacker outside of Wagner. The secondary, I think, might have gotten worse after last year. Dunbar and Shaq Griffin. I like those two corners. I didn't like that they parted ways with those two guys. And to me, the Seattle defense suspect, in my opinion. Let's see if they can protect Kirk Cousins and move the football. And he was great last week. I'll give Cousins his due. He got the ball out quickly. He was on target. That was about and Mike Zimmer wasn't sugarcoating it when he said that's maybe the best game I've seen out of our offense in years. It was, but I think it's a product of that Seattle defense, which is more than a little bit leaky. Coming into the year, you said even on the road, could I take Cleveland at a near pick 'em against Minnesota? I would have signed up for it. And I know Cleveland's had some games that statistically they don't look impressive in a few of these wins that they've had so far this year. They beat up on Chicago 26-6, mostly all their defense. It didn't take until the second half for the Baker Mayfield and the offense to really get things going. The Houston game was kind of sloppy, lethargic in that game, obviously, and then they collapsed in the second half against Kansas City in their opener and lost that game, Cleveland. So you can definitely make the case that they haven't played a great 60 minutes of football yet. But if they do that here, they're better than Minnesota. I think it's a cheap number. I'm on the Browns. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I don't know if Minnesota can play much better than they played last week. To duplicate that again, I was on Seattle last week, 17-7. Things are looking good. We're about to come off the field. We get a defensive holding call, and I think Minnesota scored to continue a drive, and I think Minnesota scored every time after that. So Cook is out. I do think it's a big deal. Some people do not think it's a big deal. He's one of the few backs that I think when he's out, okay, you did it 1 week. Look, Stefanski knows this Minnesota team from his days there. Cleveland, I think, sleptwalks through the last two games. I could see this game being a lot like the Kansas City game where Cleveland jumps out and Minnesota makes a third and fourth quarter rally to just come up short. I like Cleveland here. I like the over. I think Cleveland's offense is just
tremendous. I agree with that total as well. Yeah.
I think Cleveland's offense is the most balanced in the league. I think they can do whatever they want. They'll find, with Stefanski being a former Viking, they'll find some holes in that defense. And, I mean, Minnesota should be able to get some points, but I do like Cleveland here. They get up for these games. Kansas City, they didn't finish the job. I think they finished the job this week. Their yards per play has been just tremendous.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Browns and over. I agree with both of those. Indianapolis, Miami. We got Miami 2-point home favorites, 40. Actually, let's say, 42 and a half until another game. I can't argue with this under getting hit. I mean, this has 20-17, 21-17 written all over it. Colts offense is in shambles. Talk about Pittsburgh, talk about Chicago. Throw Indy into that mix. I mean, this team is the O-line's banged up beyond belief. Obviously you got a quarterback here in Carson Wentz that you wonder if he should even be playing, but he's just not effective last week against Tennessee. And we talked about Tennessee's defense not being great by any stretch, and the Colts really struggled to move the football consistently in that game. And then, of course, I don't love their skill position talent all that much. I mean, Taylor Hines in the backfield, but the receiving core with T.Y. Hilton out, where's the guys to stretch the field? Maybe Michael Pittman with his speed can, but that's not Zach Pascal's game. That's not Paris Campbell's game. They're possession receivers. They're more in the middle of the field, intermediate type of receivers. They're not guys that blow past the defenders and the cornerbacks down the field. I think they have it's more of a dink and dunk, lethargic, run heavy, short to intermediate passing game offense with a mediocre quarterback who's banged up and a suspect offensive line. I don't think there's a lot to like with this Colts offense here. I like Miami anything less than a field goal. Now, I understand here that Miami benefited from Derek Carr's pick six early in the game, the big lead. It basically helped them out in that game. And when you look at the Brissett's performance last week, it was uneven. He had some good moments. He had some bad moments. But let's give him credit. He found a way to tie that game with the 2-point converted touchdown late in the game, force overtime. And Las Vegas obviously escapes with the win with the game-winning field goal. But I thought Miami and Flores' coaching job, getting Brissett and that offense ready, going because he came in for Tua against the Buffalo game, and it was just a disaster. He wasn't ready. But the practice week helped. I thought Brissett was marginally better last week. And look, Tua's so inconsistent that, it's not like Miami with a good defense, still some good weapons at, Gesicki at tight end, Parker at receiver. There's still some things here for Miami. And to me, Indy's just flat bet against right now. I think things are going off the rails. I watched Frank Reich last week after that game. I saw his press conference highlight. He had that. It's like he's grayer than ever. It's like not a lot of energy, pizzazz behind his words. I think he's starting to sense that this could be a rough year here, and things may not turn around quickly or easily, if at all. I like Miami. What do you think, Steve?
So this was my other loss last week was Miami, and it just – I tell you what, man, they come up with some plays on defense and in the special teams that will just wreck your ticket. Straight up, they continually get out yarded, but they make plays in the other two facets of the game. They made several fourth down conversions to get that game into overtime, and they go down and get a field goal in overtime. They need this game. They have Tampa Bay the following week. Then they go to London to play Jacksonville. So they could right the ship very easily here. Their problems are not nearly as bad as Indianapolis. Look, Indianapolis was a +3 in turnovers last week, and they were no closer to winning that game. They bought some damaged goods, I believe, in the offseason, and that's coming to fruition now. The guy didn't have much of a preseason training camp at all, if any. Indy's in tough right now, man. Indy, when they're going, they got the run game. They get a lead. They're able to protect that lead with that defense and play ball control, and they can't do that right now, okay? And you have a ball-hawking, turnover-happy defense in Miami. They're going down there. I mean, is it that much of a point spread differential between Tua and Brissett? I mean, what would the spread be with Tua? 4.5? I mean, 2.5 is that's very reasonable for Miami. Coming off a loss, they're 0-3. They're both 0-3. They've both been out yarded in every game, but I'm sorry, Miami has the one victory. They've both been out yarded in every game, but Miami has seemed to have been in their games a bit more than Indianapolis. Indianapolis hasn't dictated anything in any of their games. They stumbled in the red zone against the Rams. Like I said, they were +3 last week in turnovers. They just can't put anything together right now, and I don't think it gets any easier this week.
Yeah, my bet, Dom, and we got Dom and Birdie in the chat. Hoops590, welcome in, everybody. A lot of people saying we had Colts under their win total, Colts not to make the playoffs. My bet was Tennessee to win the division because I figured Colts I don't think are gonna. Houston, Jacksonville ain't. It's going to be Tennessee. Yeah. That was mine. It was just Tennessee minus, I think, 120 it was to win the division. So I would have had some kind of anti-Indianapolis bet there as well. And certainly that's off to a good start. And I've heard people say that Brissett's a stiff. He can't play. And I've heard people say that Tua, it's an immense drop-off, Tua to Brissett. I don't think so. I mean, some people are talking about Tua like he's an elite top 5 quarterback. Yeah. You're not going from a top 5 quarterback to a stiff. What you're going from is a decent to maybe slightly above average quarterback in Tua to a serviceable quarterback in Brissett. I don't think Brissett's a stiff. He can play a little bit. Is he great? No. Is he going to make mistakes? Of course. But he's serviceable. That's what I think it's for going from a slightly above average quarterback to a serviceable quarterback. To me, that's not that big of a downgrade. That's what I think it is from Tua to Brissett.
I'm with you there. Yeah, Tua has been. I think the cart's been put before the horse here in regards to Tua and his accomplishments in the NFL to date. You could do a lot worse than Jacoby Brissett.
Absolutely, you can, and we might be at a point down the road where we're talking more about little Tua Talia from Maryland down the road than Tua, because he's making a name for himself right now. Carolina, Dallas 4.5-point home favorites, 51.5 the total. Look, Dallas has been every bit impressive the last couple of weeks, beating a good Chargers team, beating up Philly. The offense looks outstanding, man. Dak Prescott with Cedric Wilson, with CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. How about the tight ends, Jarwin and Schultz? I mean, my goodness, they've got lots of weapons. The O-line's pretty good. I mean, they had La'el Collins out, but other than that, the offensive line's pretty much intact and playing well. The defense is making plays. Diggs out of Alabama. How good's he been making big plays in the secondary the last couple of weeks? I mean, there's been a pass rush, even without, DeMarcus Lawrence the last couple of weeks. They at least had Randy Gregory back last week. Micah Parsons has made some plays, the rookie out of Penn State. I mean, there's things to like with Dallas's defense. It's improving, but man, this has an all too familiar feel and look to it. I've seen so many Dallas games on a Monday night, especially when they play well, and then they're home again on the Sunday on a short week, and everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid, and everybody's loving this team, and look at Dallas, they're back on the beam again, and then there's that egg about to be laid, about to be hatched on that Sunday game, and I get that sense we might see that here. And don't underestimate Matt Rule and a good Carolina coaching staff having the extra time to prepare after playing Thursday night last week against Houston. I think that's going to matter in this game. The one concern is the J.C. Horn injury in that secondary, because that guy was not playing like a rookie before his injury. He looked like he was already a more than above average cornerback. He looked like a very good one already. And now you miss him in that secondary, and they've had to sign a couple of guys this week in the secondary, and that's not where you want to be vulnerable, I guess you could say, against Dallas's offense. But nevertheless, it's taking points with what I still think is the better head. It's not what I think. It is the better head coach in Matt Rule. I've seen enough of Mike McCarthy. He's the better head coach in this matchup. He's keeping his timeouts with him into halftime last week, Mike McCarthy. That's all you need to know about that. Carolina, great defense so far. Sam Darnold is comfortable in this Joe Brady offense because, look, he's got competent folks that are putting him in position to succeed. And everybody worried, Christian McCaffrey's out. What are they going to do? Calm down, folks. Chuba Hubbard will be fine. In fact, he ran the football extremely well for Carolina after Christian McCaffrey left the game. The running back injuries, a lot of them are overrated. Did they miss Dalvin Cook in Minnesota last week when Alex Madison's run for 140 or whatever it was? No. The running back injuries, be careful just overreacting to them. It's more about the blocking scheme. It's more about the O-line. Are they opening up holes for the run game? I think Carolina gets it done here. I don't know about outright, but I think they could win outright, but I'll gladly take +4.5, +5 in this spot, which I think is advantageous for the defensive dog. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, extra time to prepare here for Carolina. And look, they're the other side of the coin. We mentioned the bad teams that played really good defenses. Carolina's schedule has been a little light to this point, a real step up in class against Dallas.
That's true.
But I'm glad you brought that up about Dallas, and just, they get that momentum and then they just drop. And that's why I couldn't bet them on Monday night, because they had to win against LA, even though LA had 2 touchdowns called back and they threw an interception in the end zone. And I needed to see it from Dallas on Monday, and I did. I saw it, very impressed. But now I need to see them do it again, okay? Because that's the second part of that equation, where they have stumbled in the past. And, this is probably the game I'm most interested to watch this week, is that Carolina front seven. I think they have 14 or 15 sacks against that Dallas offensive line. I think Dallas is going to get theirs, but I think Carolina can move the ball a little bit as well. And I think 50. I think it was 50 right now. 51.5. Okay, going up to 52. Yeah, it's starting to. It's going up a little bit. I think you could see some points in this game. I hope we don't go back to Sam Darnold of 2019 and 2020 in this game. I think that would be a concern if they ask him to do too much with McCaffrey being out. But probably the most interesting game I'm looking forward to this week, and I do have it circled for an overplay. We'll see. We'll see how it transpires later in the week, but that's what I'm looking. I'm looking for some points in this game, because I do see Dallas coming out a little flat.
Yeah, it's tough with the total, because Carolina's defense looks good, but they haven't played a great offensive slate so far. There's no doubt. With who they've matched up with Zach Wilson in his first game as an NFL quarterback. You had the Saints in the weird situation where they've been away from home for so long, and that was actually a great performance, because that Saints offense is still capable. And then Houston with Davis Mills. So you're right, in his first start. So, this is going to be a challenge for Carolina's defense, but defensive-minded head coach, good staff, extra time. They put in a plan to at least keep them in the game. And again, I've seen this movie with Dallas before, off a huge primetime win the next week. It's like played out as true as time the last few years, where it's just a bad game the next time out. Maybe they've changed. Maybe they've matured. Maybe they are that good, but they're going to have to show it to me first. Giants and Saints. Saints 8-point favorites, 42 the total. This is going to be their first home game at the Superdome, so you got to expect a pretty live atmosphere here for the Saints, welcoming them home, especially off a a nice couple of wins, 2-1 start to the year for the Saints. They had that awful game against Carolina, sandwiched in between two very good games, dominating Green Bay, and then a very comfortable win against New England last week. So give the Saints credit. Jameis Winston, look, he got away with one. That throw into the end zone last week should have been picked off. But he's going to do that every now and then. But, he's still made a lot of plays. The talent is there with this guy. And I don't know. The Giants, to me, look like it's a combustible situation that might blow up pretty soon. It's not a bargain by any stretch on the Saints. But to me, the only thing I'm going to do here is maybe put the Saints in some teasers. Put the Saints in some parlays. Tease them down to -1.5. Because I do think they win the game. But I just don't really want to back the Giants right now. I think the Saints win. I just don't want to lay this many. So what I'll do is I'll just put New Orleans in some teasers and some parlays. The offense is shaky for the Giants. They're not getting stops in the red zone on defense either. Just a lot of problems for the Giants. What do you think here?
Well, this has been the Giants' role, an away dog, awful loss, getting over a touchdown. They've been very profitable. We think that was more Green Bay in week 1 against New Orleans.
Yeah.
New Orleans throttled them. Their offense really hasn't been that good the last 2 weeks. I know New York has some injuries. Like you said, they should get an uptick from that crowd being at home for the first time. But, that could go either way. They've been on the road for so long that maybe they after the win last week, and they come back home and they're going back into their old routine and catching up on some stuff for not being at home for a month and a half. You know that from hockey, and you're on the road for a while. You come back that first game back, and doesn't go so well. It's a lot to lay with this isn't Drew Brees, which now that I mention it, they weren't that good with Brees laying this number as a home favorite. Hasn't been a good role. I got the Giants circled. I want to see their injuries. You mentioned the wideouts. I think Daniel Jones is a better quarterback than Jameis Winston. Okay, I'll take Daniel Jones and his running. With 8 points, you can make a mistake or two. Okay, the Saints cannot make a mistake. I got them at 3 yards per play 2 weeks ago. I got them at 4 yards per play last week. They were very fortunate. They played a rookie quarterback last week, made a ton of mistakes. You saw against Carolina, against a serviceable opponent. This New Orleans team is not where they were in years past. It's a lot to lay. And that Superdome hasn't been the home field that I think some think it is in recent years. They haven't been that good of a home favorite over the years.
Yeah, the Giants definitely banged up beyond belief. They're 10. I'm just looking it up now because you mentioned the road underdog rule. 10-1 ATS their last 11 as a road underdog. That's wow. That's significant. And look, I was not going to lay more than a touchdown with New Orleans. I do think they win the game. That's why I've got them in parlays and teasers. But I don't know. Is it for sure they'll even win the game straight up? They should, I think, the Saints. But, that's a great point spread track record in this role. But, again, a lot of injuries for the Giants, the receiving core. We talked about it. Slayton and Shepard left last week.
Blake Martinez out.
Martinez on defense. Yep. Saquon Barkley banged up again and questionable. So a lot of issues. We want to get that confirmed and a little bit more clarity on that.
Without question.
No doubt. Chiefs and Eagles. Kansas City, 7-point road favorites, 54 the total. Look,
right.
Monday night. Yeah, I'm struggling with things to say and talk about with these two teams right now. Philly was atrocious. I don't know if I can back Philly. But I will be damned if I'm laying a touchdown with Kansas City on the road right now and that defense. Spagnuolo's got issues. They're not getting stops in the red zone. They're not forcing turnovers. There's no pass rush. The secondary can't cover anybody. It was a field day. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen basically won every contested football battle against that Kansas City defense on last Sunday. Chargers full marks for that win outright on the road. It was one of my top plays last week, the Chargers, plus the points. And this won't be the last time I bet against Kansas City laying points, but I don't know if I'm going to do that here. Lukewarm, maybe Kansas City in a teaser, although that didn't work out well for anybody that did that last week. But Philly ain't no Chargers. I'll tell you that right now. That looked like an ill-prepared football team. That looked like a rookie coach not having his team ready to go last week against Dallas from Nick Sirianni. That was ugly. That defense was carved up. The offense was terrible. And it wasn't all on Hurts. The O-line wasn't great.
No.
Drop passes as well from some of the Dallas Goedert had a terrible drop pass in a big part of that game. I mean, it was just sloppy, bad football from the Philadelphia Eagles. They're also dealing with injuries. But I will not lay 7 with Kansas City. I think the safer play, because I do think they will bounce back and win. You got to believe, too, with the little hospital ambulance trip that Andy Reid took, that there's a little, hey, let's get right here and let's play our asses off here for our head coach that, had some physical struggles last weekend, too. So I think Kansas City wins the game. If you want to put them in a parlay or teaser, I wouldn't argue with that, but I ain't laying 7 with this group right now. Steve, what do you think here, KC and Philly?
With 0-10-1 against the spread in their last 11. You saw what Dak did to this defense. You would think that Mahomes on par with him, if not better, that Kansas City should have some success in this game. But they just do enough to win. And last week it bit him in the ass. And 7.5. You would expect a better effort from Philadelphia. They were never in that game on Monday night, and maybe you're right. The rookie head coach. Monday night, things can get away pretty fast, I would imagine, in a situation like that. But I'm not laying. I know that, and I need to see it from KC. And I mentioned this: the Super Bowl hangover. That's real. That's week in and week out. You're going to get everybody's best shot. You're in the Super Bowl. You won it the year before. Because how much it takes to get back there. Okay, when you lose that Super Bowl, you got to think about going all the way back to July and starting over. You're the only team that's been through it, so you know exactly what it takes to get back there, and it's a lot. And if I heard Mahomes' quotes about, I read something where he said it's a long season, and that's. If that's the mindset you're going to have, then I can't lay this price with you. No, there's no doubt in my mind I can lay this price with you. I mean, if you think you're gonna get going here in the middle of the season and make a run, and that's worked for some teams where they get off to a 5-4, 6-5 start. Like look at Tampa last year, 7-5. You get hot at the right time, and maybe that's what Kansas City's doing. Maybe Kansas City doesn't need to go 4-0 in September or 8-0 in the first half of the year and look so good. Because last year they did plateau in the second half of the season. Maybe they've identified that, but you're losing home games and you're on the road now. This is one you need to have. Okay, so I think Kansas City could win this by whatever amount they want. But I need to see it from them that they've righted the ship before I'm willing to. Because I will. If they show me they've righted the ship and they start playing better, laying 7 with this team is not a lot to ask. But they become an in-game team for me. So they'll be that way for now and until I see otherwise.
I don't think there's a sense of urgency yet for Kansas City, and maybe they need to lose another game or two before there is. I mean, you're hearing Patrick Mahomes say stuff after last week. We'll be fine. It's a long season ahead of us. I mean, come on. That's not, that tells you right there that this team's just kind of, let's get through September. Let's get through October. We're thinking playoffs. We're thinking Super Bowl. But the longer you just keep thinking that, and if you stumble here and there a few more times, you're going to put yourself in a dubious spot in terms of playoff positioning. Seriously. So, you got to wake yourself out of this malaise at some point. We'll see if the Chiefs can do it here and start the game better. Start it on time, as Mike Babcock would say. Houston Texans and Buffalo Bills. Buffalo 16.5 point home favorites, 47. I'm not laying the 16.5 with Buffalo in this spot. They have Kansas City on deck, revenge game from the AFC Championship next Sunday night. But it definitely has that feel of a game where Buffalo can have success offensively here against Houston. I actually think this game could go over the total. I think now another extra time to prepare for the Houston offense at least, and Davis Mills. I don't think he's very good. I could see the Bills defense being a little sleepy here too. We've seen the Bills at times defensively when they're not fully engaged. They can fall asleep and give up some plays, and this could be the spot to do that. You crushed Miami. You had a dominant win against Washington last week. That defense is asleep. Houston just, against a sleepy Buffalo team can get 17, 20 points maybe, and then what do you think here, Steve? Houston and Buffalo.
I think 14 is the number for Houston to get to, because I think Buffalo can do a lot of the heavy lifting here. I think Buffalo can put up 38 in this game. I know you mentioned Kansas City the next week. Allen I would like to see another big game from Allen before Kansas City on deck. And that, Kansas City has Buffalo on deck. That even goes to more their situation in Philadelphia. They need to win that game. But if Houston can get to 14, I think Buffalo can get 35. I think we can get over this total. I think it's very conceivable that 47 and a half, 48. Yeah, Buffalo can put up 5 scores in this game. I don't think there's any question about that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think they can. They played a Jacksonville team breaking in a brand new rookie quarterback the first game. They faced Carolina, that's more of a methodical ball control offense. After that, they haven't played a boatload of great offensive football teams yet this year. This Houston defense going to get tested here by this Buffalo offense too. They faced Cleveland, the best one they've played, and they gave up 31 in that game. And I think you're going to see Buffalo at least get there, if not 35. And look, Cleveland was kind of a turnovers a little bit in that game too from Cleveland, or else they probably could have put up more than that. So I like the over in that one. All right, the late games on Sunday. This is a good one. Arizona, LA Rams, the NFC West battle, best division in the NFL, top to bottom. Rams 4.5-point home favorites, 55 the total. Money's come in on Arizona this week, Steve. They see the spot, right? Big win against Tampa, defending champs. Stafford and McVay, almost a flawless game. Both sides of the ball, up and down the field on offense. Got the stops when they needed it on Brady, on defense. But now, can you withstand prosperity? Roll back strong here against a very, very tough, good Arizona team. And this is where we like Arizona, or at least I like them. Road underdogs, getting points. They've been pretty good. I've been high on Arizona from day one. And I like the Rams a lot. I've been backing these teams a lot this year so far. You got to pick one or the other. I would take the points here with Arizona before laying it with the Rams. And I would look at over again. I know it's 55. It is a very, very high total. I get it, but we got over the total with the Rams last week. Rams games are 3-0 to the over this year. There's just too much talent, skill, too much good play calling. Kingsbury's calling a good game this year, good season as well offensively this year, and we know McVay is doing that. He seems to be able to draw up Cooper Kupp wide open anytime he wants to this year, which is incredible to see that happen considering how good he is, and he still can scheme up an offense where he can get him wide open. It just feels like it's back and forth and 31-27 somebody, and that gets you over the total. So dog and over for me. What do you like here? It's a good game.
I'm definitely interested in the over because I don't think either team is going to, be a run-heavy offense at all. It could be a case where, it's last team with the ball. I want to get on Arizona. McVay and this Ram team has just absolutely dominated Arizona in recent years. Okay, they statistically on the scoreboard, and that was with Jared Goff, and they've just absolutely dominated this Cardinal team. Cardinals won't get a better spot to have the Rams in, that's for sure. Another home game, just beating Tampa, who they beat last year as well. I'm more inclined to play over. I could see this thing getting over a couple different ways. It could be a seesaw battle. I think the Rams could get up big and then Arizona make a Furies comeback. But we're going to see each quarterback should have 40 attempts, no doubt about it. So I think less than 4 touchdowns each or less than 8 touchdowns overall. I think there's a realistic chance that this game goes over.
Yeah, I think it'll get there. And again, you're still below the key number of 56. So I do think there's still wiggle room there. We go from one NFC West battle to another. All the NFC West teams playing divisional games this week. Seattle, San Francisco, San Fran, 2.5, 3-point home favorites, 52 the total. It's another over for me, a broken record. I think that's the last 3 games. I like the over in all of them. This one too. Look, the 49ers are completely ravaged on defense. I don't think enough people realize that. Steve, with their defense. Jason Verrett is a great cornerback. He's out for the year. They've got Dre Greenlaw, Manuel Mosley, Kevin Givens, Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw. I mean, they're bringing in Josh Norman, in the secondary, plugging him in there as an emergency, and that's not the Josh Norman of his Washington and Carolina days, that's for sure. I mean, it's a ravaged defense for Kyle Shanahan's group right now. We saw that. Green Bay up and down the field pretty much the entire game last Sunday night against the Niners. That's bad news against Russell Wilson and company, coming off a loss, too, against Minnesota. And I know they got shut down held to 17 points. But I like Seattle's offense and Russell Wilson when he's off a loss to bounce back. He always plays well. He always lights it up when he's coming off a game where he doesn't play well or as well and they lose. So I think they'll move the ball, and I think San Fran will. Everybody talking about we got to see Trey Lance at quarterback. How can you blame Jimmy G for last week? He did what he had to do late in the game. He moved the ball down the field. They got the touchdown they needed. They just gave Aaron Rodgers too much time, and the defense was terrible. Not that because they're bad. They were bad, but product of all the injuries they've got on defense, San Francisco. So rather than look at a side here, because I don't trust either team at this current number, still don't know if I love the spot for Seattle, even though San Francisco's got defensive injuries. They're on the road for a second straight week. Seattle. So I don't know if I love the spot enough to take Seattle. I'd lean Seattle, but I think I'm just going to stick over to the over here, 52 and a half, and expect the offenses to be the superior groups for both of these teams. And I talked about the Seattle defense earlier with you, Steve. I just don't think they're very good. So I think we'll see points. What do you think?
I think a lot has to do, and I'm starting to see a pattern with the 49ers, and you mentioned their injuries. When they play a top flight quarterback, they seem to have their issues. So they beat Jared Goff in Detroit. They beat Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, but they lost Aaron Rodgers, took the ball down the field to win the game. Last year, they dropped to Seattle. They dropped to a Buffalo team with Josh Allen, where the game they weren't even in. They lose to Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson again, beat Cam Newton, beat Jared Goff, beat the Giants quarterback, name escapes me right now, Daniel Jones, and they beat the Jets. So I think, and they split with Arizona. So I think when they play a top flight quarterback, that defense is up against it a little bit. And I'm not quite sure that, to their credit, Garoppolo and all those weapons that are in and out of the lineup, it's been this way since the Super Bowl for this team with the injuries. So I was on Seattle last week. I'm coming right back with them. I'm taking the points. I still got a 3.5 out there. I'm taking it. I just, like you said, I think in these divisional games, off a loss, especially with Pete Carroll and that offense, they've seen San Francisco enough. They've had success in San Francisco. I think it's too many points. This is like I said, this is 2 games in a row where they had their heart pulled out last week in the last seconds against Green Bay. Saw what Mahomes did to him in that group in the Super Bowl against top flight quarterbacks. This defense seems to be up against it a little bit. And you mentioned the problems they have in the secondary with the injuries. Middle linebackers out. Bosa, Witherspoon, they've been on the injury report. It's the same San Francisco team that we've seen since the Super Bowl. And we've been saying that a lot on this podcast. So I'm going to give Seattle another crack. I'm going to give Carroll and Wilson another crack here and to get the job done.
As a divisional dog, and the divisional dogs long-term have been profitable, and we certainly have one here in this one with Seattle. Baltimore, Denver, we'll go about another 15 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. We thank you, Steve, for being with on the show here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. But, we got about 15 minutes left. We got 4 games left. Baltimore, Denver. Denver pick 'em -145 the total in this game. This is a fascinating game because Baltimore is tenfold a tougher opponent for Denver than anything they've faced so far. There's no doubt. They've played the Giants, they've played Jacksonville, and they've played the Jets. Okay, that's pretty weak. That's the sisters of the poor right there for the most part. And now you're going to end up taking the step up in class against Baltimore. But to me, Baltimore is not all they're, we think of them usually with what we've seen from them this year. I mean, look at it. They lost to Las Vegas. The defense, obviously, it's been banged up in the secondary. It's another team that's had defensive injuries. We know the running back position's been decimated. Lamar Jackson's been good at times. He's been off at times. They were very fortunate to beat Kansas City. They plausibly could be 0-3, the Baltimore Ravens right now. And they needed the 66-yard record-setting field goal off the crossbar to beat Detroit. They're that close to being 0-3. The Detroit narrow win and in that game, and then the narrow win against Kansas City, on Sunday night where John Harbaugh rolls the dice, and rather than punt the ball back to Mahomes, he went for it on 4th down. They got it. They iced the game at that point. So I get it. This is a huge step up in class for Denver, but there's issues with Baltimore. And I think Baltimore's beatable right now. And this defense could impact the game. And in Denver, we know it's never easy to win a Mile High in that venue. I'm going to buy, I've been on Denver most of this year in a lot of their games. I had them first half against the Jets, took them against Jacksonville, laid the points. Week 1, it was against the Giants. I was on them there too. I'm going to buy into Denver here. And Teddy Bridgewater, you want to go against his ATS record as a starting quarterback? He just doesn't make mistakes, Steve. That's what's good. He knows he's got a good defense. He knows he's got, a running game to rely on. He doesn't have to do it all. Make the plays that are there. Make the safe plays. Don't make mistakes. Don't turn it over. Don't fuel the other team. He's doing that right now. If they follow that script here, they're going to give themselves a chance. Don't know if they win the game, but I'm willing to give Denver a chance here to beat Baltimore because I don't think Baltimore's been at their best so far, and they're still dealing with some key injuries. What do you think here, Steve?
No, I think they do. I think you hit the nail on the head with Baltimore. They had a tailor-made opponent to come off that huge win against Kansas City going to Detroit. I would think that 3/4 of the rest of the league, if they played them, would have defeated Baltimore that day. I think this is a team we need to start watching. I think the walls might be caving in on this Raven team here. You mentioned the injuries. Lamar Jackson just can't continue to do it all by himself. They're gonna need to play 60 minutes against this Denver team, and that defense just isn't where it used to be. They give up 8.3 against Kansas City, 6.1 against the Raiders per play. I mean, if that game goes another quarter last week, they probably lose that one to Detroit too. This is a tough road trip for Baltimore here. And listen, just some teams, it just falls in place for. And I think Denver, with that September they had, when Fangio hadn't won a September game, and you saw that September schedule and thought, this team could get out to 3-0 and be really set up for success. And look, they got Indianapolis next week on Monday night. So, and Denver could get off to a really good start here. I think they win this game. And it probably maybe a field goal or a touchdown, but I think Denver makes the plays in the end to win this game.
Yeah, we're in agreement there for sure. How about your hometown Pittsburgh Steelers as they travel to Lambeau to take on the Green Bay Packers? This is the Jim Nantz, Tony Romo game in the late window on CBS on Sunday afternoon. We've got Green Bay 6.5, 7-point home favorites, 45.5 the total in this game. I don't know. There's something that doesn't feel right, doesn't smell right.
Right.
Green Bay's been 6.5
all week.
Stuck there. Why hasn't this gone to 7? TJ Watt out. The offense is in shambles. Deontay Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster are questionable. They might not even have full-strength wide receiver core this week, and yet the number's stuck at 6.5 yet. What's going on here?
Look, the offensive line is as bad as it appears to be. Okay, now they have injuries at both tackle spots. This should be Ben's last year. You got Canada as a coordinator. I don't know if he's running the offense. I think Ben might be running the offense. Last year, he got the ball off quicker than any quarterback in the league. And people thought, well, maybe, he wasn't getting sacked. So the offensive line was doing their job. Not really. He had to get the ball out that quick because the offensive line was so bad. That's why. It hasn't gotten any better. Okay, you can rush 4 and get pressure on Ben. He's going to be right where he is, 3, 5, 7-step drop. He's going to be right there. And you can drop 7. These receivers can't get separation. Every ball is contested that they catch. They can't put drives together. I don't know why this line. I took some 6.5 earlier in the week because I thought, my God, it's going to go to 7 or 8, and it hasn't. Green Bay, it appears to have whatever that first game was, mostly out of their system. They have a chance here to make a move in this division that doesn't seem to have any worthy adversaries for Green Bay. So Green Bay's in kind of a spot where they can, I guess, take their time. And if they get off to a slow start, so be it. But this is a game where you would think Green Bay can win this game 24-7, 24-10, something around that range. I got to believe that Rodgers is going to have a pretty good day here. I mean, their offensive line isn't the greatest either, but 6.5 points with Rodgers. I mean, it's the only way you can look. Don't think too far. I'm sorry,
it feels that
don't,
way.
Don't think too much into this. Just like what you've seen from Pittsburgh is what you're going to get. Nothing's going to it's not going to get any better. So who's ever listening, I wouldn't think too much into this game. Just take some Green Bay, put it in pocket. It's still at 6.5, and it looks. I would imagine at some point it'll get to 7, but if it goes down, we'll take some more. But I think Green Bay's the side here.
I mean, it's an O-line that's got 4 new starters on it. Ben's looking old and haggard. He's throwing to the running back 20 times a game. That's the offense apparently right now. They got injuries at wide receiver. Like I said, 4 new starters on the defense has got tons of key injuries. I mean, it's unbelievable what they're dealing with here. Carlos Davis, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Tyson Alualu, Stephon Tuitt.
Yeah, I mean, Bush didn't play last week. Bush didn't play. Lost Dupree in free agency.
Yeah.
Okay, like this defense is not. Whatever happened in Buffalo, I don't see that happening again this year. Okay, they blocked the punt.
Yeah.
They made some halftime adjustments. Buffalo shot themselves in the foot quite a bit. I don't see Green Bay doing that. Green Bay had their hiccup. I can't see Green Bay doing that here.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems it's insurmountable things. It's insurmountable to overcome everything they've got to go through. O-line issues, Ben's struggling. Defense is ravaged by injuries. And it's a good defense when they're at full strength, but they're not anything close to full strength right now. And Dupree leaves in the offseason, so it feels like it's cheap. Green Bay can just to win the game by a touchdown, minus 6.5, sure. But why is this staying pat? It's just that head scratcher for me. I don't want Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is 12-3 against the spread as a road dog the last 15, but come on, I mean that's not enough just to overcome this Pittsburgh situation with the injuries and the bad O-line and the bad offense and everything that's going on with them right now.
They're going to have to score some points to stay in this game, and it doesn't appear that they can.
Yeah, not what we've seen so far. One of the most anticipated games, obviously, in the NFL in a very long time in the regular season, Sunday Night Football, the return of Tom Brady to New England to face his former head coach, Bill Belichick. Brady and Hoodie head-to-head for the first time since their parting of the ways in New England. Tampa Bay 6.5-point road favorites, 49 the total. I don't know if it's they cover this number, but I'm pretty damn confident they win the football game. Tampa Bay. I don't see Brady going in there and losing to Bill Belichick. I just don't. I mean, we have seen that Bill Belichick kind of has needed Brady the last couple of years more than Brady's needed him. That's basically what we've seen. I think there's a subtle message. There's great respect. They'll be friends forever for all the years in New England. But Brady's going to want to go in there and win. And they're coming off a pretty bad game by their standards against the Rams. I thought that was a step back for New England. What concerned me, Steve, about New England is the O-line for the first time this year looked suspect. And that was against the Saints. And now you're going up against a Tampa Bay defense that can get after it too. They've got guys up front that can get after it. When you're talking about Sue, when you're talking about Levante David and company, you got guys that can go out there and blow up the line of scrimmage for Tampa, and a defensive line that felt they didn't get enough pressure on Stafford last week. I think if they do that on Mac Jones here, you could force him into some of those mistakes he had. It was the first time we really saw some mistakes out of the rookie, Mac Jones, last week. You might get them here. I don't know if I want to lay 6.5, 7, but I damn sure have Tampa Bay on teasers, parlays. I've got them in a couple of my 6-point teasers in the NFL this Sunday. And at this price, as long as it doesn't go beyond 7, I would lean to the Bucs here in this one. I think there's a point to be proven here for Tom Brady against his former team. And I just think top to bottom, they're better. And it's a plus spot, too. You got Tampa Bay off getting smacked in the mouth for the first time this year as well. And I think they'll be able to get the job done. And I'd lean to lay in the points, but I really like them in parlays and teasers here. What do you think, Steve, Sunday night?
Well, for New England to be in this game, they have to be able to run the ball. That's their calling card. And Tampa Bay's led the league the last 2 years in run defense. Do you really
the point where teams don't even run it against them very much anymore?
Yeah. So you really think they're going to be able to sustain any type of ground game against Tampa Bay, which means that the rookie quarterback is going to have to make throws in the passing game, even against a suspect secondary. I'm not so sure that New England has the components to get that done. I think Tampa just methodically, it'll be great theater at the beginning of the game, but I don't know if there's going to be much of a game. I think Tampa extends the lead throughout the game, maybe field goal them to death. But, you get under a score here. I think they come out, they establish early. They're the superior team. I think it might be a little bit of deer in the headlights for a young New England team with a rookie quarterback. And, yeah, I just think they get out in front and they will extend their lead over the game and win this game by double digits.
All right, and we got another good one to wrap up week 4 in the NFL. Monday night, I mean, two teams that are battling for first in the AFC West. Who would have thought the 3-0 Las Vegas Raiders taking on the 2-1 LA Chargers, coming off a huge win in Kansas City last week. Chargers 3-point home favorites, 51.5 the total in this game. I really want to back LA Chargers here in this game. I think they're still better than Las Vegas. I think Las Vegas is 3-0 is a little fortuitous. Baltimore, we talked about Baltimore. I don't think they're quite the same this year. They won that game. Pittsburgh is a mess offensively. Las Vegas won that game. They played Miami last week with Brissett at quarterback, and they still almost blew that game, Las Vegas, and had to survive and win in overtime. They're a good 3-0. They're improved. Their defense is a lot better than it was last year, I think, with the additions they made there in the secondary and the pressure. They're a better defense for sure, and the O-line has played better. With all the departures, Gabe Jackson and Trent Brown gone from that O-line last year for Las Vegas, and they've held up pretty well for Derek Carr. But the 3-0s, they played well enough to win. There's been a little good fortune in it as well. The one thing that's holding me back here about laying 3 with the Chargers, though, Steve, all this team does is play close games. They've not been great in the favorites role. There's no home field edge for them at SoFi. There's going to be a lot of Raiders fans making from Las Vegas to LA. How much of a home field is it really going to be for the Chargers? But when it's all said and done, I like the young kid coach, Brandon Staley. I think he's doing a good job. It was great DC under McVay with the Rams. He earned the opportunity. I just think there's a better, more well-rounded football team altogether than the Raiders right now. The only thing that's holding me back is, again, they've not been good laying points, the Chargers. Of course, last week they covered. They've been automatic as a dog, how good they've been. But, as laying points, it's been tricky. And in that home field as a home favorite with lacking a home field edge, that can sometimes be tricky to trust the Chargers in that spot, as we saw against Dallas, a couple of weeks ago. But I still think they're better than the Raiders, even though the Raiders are the 3-0 team going into this game. So don't know if I'll bet it, but I've got the, as you would say, Steve, I've got the Chargers circled here in this game. What do you think?
Well, the Chargers have a little bit of that Dallas Cowboy trait in them, where it's tough for them to build off recent success. Look, every team that's played Kansas City has failed to cover the spread the following week. So, it was an emotional win for both teams last week. I think I'm not really interested in a side here, Ian. It could go either way. They've had some great games in the last couple of years. I like over in this one. I think both offenses are the two best units on this field. These guys, they don't dink and dunk, man. They go down the football field with their passes. And these two are, Carr's playing the best football I've seen his whole career. And Herbert's, the sky's the limit for this kid, Herbert. He has an absolute cannon for an arm. 51.5 seems very reasonable. Ideal venue, indoors, fast track. Give me over, man. Give me over in this game all day long.
There you go, liking points. And you're right, the Chargers offense has been very good. Chargers defense has been not quite as good, I think, this year. And look, Derwin James left the game again last week with an injury, so keep an eye on that. And we know he's had trouble staying healthy the last few years. Great stuff with Steel City Steve. The great analysis, the CFL card, the NFL card. We'll wrap it up in a few minutes. We'll give you a best bet on the way out. We'll also let Steve tell us a game or two from college football that he likes for this upcoming weekend. But first, before we get to that, we'll pause for a message from Manscaped and Southtown 101. All right, Southtown 101. When you're in San Antonio, stop in there. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke. That place was rocking after UTSA came back to beat Memphis last week. I know they were excited down there. They should be. That's a good football team. Southtown 101. Make sure you check them out. Manscaped promo code PubSports, 20% off your purchase with that promo code Lawnmower 4.0 and any Manscaped product. And mybookie.ag promo code PubSports. Football season, obviously, fast and furious. Hockey, basketball right around the corner. Great time of year. Sign up for an account, mybookie.ag. Bitcoin accepted currency for your deposit if you use the promo code PubSports. All right, great stuff with Steel City Steve. We'll get to our CFL or NFL best bet in just a sec. You can be from either of those two leagues. But first, Steve, I'm going to be talking college football on this channel on Saturday. So I'm going to let you have the floor here when it comes to college football. What teams do you like from a betting standpoint this weekend?
I'll give you one that hasn't moved yet, and it's the Western Kentucky-Michigan State game. I think this is a really good spot for, should say, a really bad spot for Michigan State. They come off a overtime win against Nebraska where they only netted 254 yards of offense. There have been questions about their secondary. Next week, they are back in Big Ten play against Rutgers, where they lost last year. They should have revenge on the mind. And they have a ho-hum Conference USA squad coming in on homecoming, getting 11 points. But this Western Kentucky offense has just been – they've been close. Okay, they put up a ton of yards against an Army defense that I regard as being pretty solid on the back end. One of the best defenses in the Big Ten coming into the season was Indiana. And, you know, this Western Kentucky offense did a really, really nice job against them last week in a 2-point loss. This is 11 points here. And, you know, Michigan State should be able to move the ball on the ground. But I think Western Kentucky can get their points here. And I'm not crazy about the spot for Michigan State, like I said. And they've given up over 400 yards, 400 or more, to Northwestern Nebraska and Miami. So I'm going to be looking at Western Kentucky plus the 11 here.
It kind of reminds me of Indiana, Western Kentucky last weekend, where you got that Big Ten team playing a non-conference game sandwiched in between Big Ten games, the Big Ten season. And sure enough, Western Kentucky covered last week against Indiana. Kind of the same thing for Michigan State here. Nebraska last week. They got another Big Ten game next week. A little sandwich situation here. And you're right. With that offense, the back door is always open. Right? They can be down 14 or 17. Yep. And Bailey Zappi can do what he did last week, punch in a touchdown with 2 minutes to go. That air raid offense is really good. I actually bet the over in that game, Western Kentucky, Michigan State already, and that total's gone up. And I got in on it early. Good thing. And I was on the over last week with Western against Indiana. They've gone over in every game. Every Western Kentucky game's gone over the total. So, and always good for a backdoor score potentially. So there you go, Steve, with Western Kentucky plus 10.5 against Michigan State. All right, best bet, CFL or NFL, Steve? If you had to give us one, what would it be?
Yeah, I'll give you one each. CFL, that Montreal Hamilton under. If Watford's going to be the guy and it's 48.5, I do like it under. There's no reason for me to bet a Hamilton game over with the way they're playing on offense, which is going to be limited with that quarterback. But that defense for Hamilton is playing lights out right now. And I just think it's a bad matchup for Montreal. So Montreal may be able to slow down their offense, but Hamilton's pass defense against Montreal's pass offense, I really like, and to force Adams into some mistakes.
There you go. Montreal Hamilton under, which is currently at looks like 48.5 total in that game. And NFL, what do you got?
Monday night, that over. I think Raiders Chargers. I think it's can't miss. 51.5. I can't find any reason why that game does not find its way to 52 points. This has at least 28-24 written all over it with these two quarterbacks that are playing some of the best football of the young season.
All right, excellent. There you go. Over the total, Chargers, Raiders, CFL. I'm gonna go Calgary. Crazy as it is, but I love this spot for them. Plus 2.5 against Saskatchewan. I think this is their spot to step up. Maybe they're not capable, as we said earlier, and Bo Mitchell can't get it right, but We'll see. I think this couldn't have set up better for them. Saskatchewan on the road a second straight week, and it's like they were life and death to beat BC in that game last week. I think it sets up well for Calgary. I'll take them plus the 2.5 at home against Saskatchewan. And in the NFL, I'll take the Kakalaki Panthers plus 4.5 against Dallas. We've just seen this 10 million times from Dallas. People get excited,
Right.
people get fired up for Dallas football. And then the stink bomb is right around the corner. And maybe that's this Sunday against Carolina. And I like the idea of a defensive dog catching points.
Yeah.
A team with extra time to prepare as well from the Thursday night game last week. So Carolina plus 4.5 against Dallas for my NFL best bet. That's a great show, Steve. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll get you on a time or two again later this year.
Thank you for having me, Ian, and good luck this weekend.
Absolutely. Good luck to you as well. Good luck to everyone tuning in. We thank you all for tuning in. Live viewers, 35 of them right now. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't already. And we will be back next Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, for another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy right here on Pub Sports Radio. For Steel City Steve, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great football weekend. Enjoy the games and good luck. We'll see you again next Thursday right here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy on Pub Sports Radio.